Chapter 2. George witnesses the birth of a star. Before we begin, on a clear and cloudless night, go to the terrace and observe the sky. You will see so many bright points in the sky that it is difficult to count them. The points which seem to twinkle repeatedly are all stars. Our sun is also a star. Since it is very close to Earth, we can see it very big in size from the ground. The universe consists of millions of stars, and many more are born and even die out with the passage of a long time. Let's read the story of a scientist, Eric, who explains a boy how stars are born through a visual presentation. George enters an abandoned house to find his lost pet. He finds out that the house is not abandoned and a girl called Annie lives there with her father, Eric. Eric is a scientist. Their house is in a mess, but George spots many interesting things in the clutter of books and papers. The thing that fascinates him the most is Eric's special computer. Eric's computer was small and glossy. It looked powerful and neat, the kind of computer you might find on a spaceship. Eric hit a couple of buttons on the keyboard and the computer made a sort of humming noise while bright flashes of colors shot across the screen. "You have forgotten something," said a strange mechanical voice, and George jumped out of his skin. "Have I?" Eric looked confused for a moment. "Yes," said the voice. "You have not introduced me." "I'm so sorry," exclaimed Eric. "George, this is Cosmos, my computer." George gulped but didn't say anything. "You have to say hello to Cosmos," said Eric in a side whisper to George. "Otherwise, he'll get offended." "Hello, Cosmos," said George nervously. He'd never spoken to a computer before.
"Hello, George," replied Cosmos. "I am the most powerful computer in the world."
"In the future, there will be computers more powerful than me, but there are none in the past or present." "Sorry about this," Eric whispered to George. "Computers can be a bit touchy sometimes." "I'm cleverer than Eric too," boasted Cosmos. "Says who?" said Eric crossly, glaring at the screen. "Says me," said Cosmos. "I can compute billions of numbers in a nanosecond, in less time than it takes you to say Cosmos is great. I can compute the life of planets, of comets, of stars, and of galaxies. Before you can say Cosmos is the most impressive computer that I have ever seen, he is truly incredible. I can." All right, said Eric. "Cosmos, you're the most impressive computer we have ever seen. Now can we get on? I want to show George how a star is born." "No," said Cosmos. "No," said Eric. "What do you mean by no, you ridiculous machine?" "He must take the oath," said Cosmos. "Good point. Clever, Cosmos," said Eric, leaving over to the blackboard. "George," said Eric, "to learn about the great subject in the whole universe, are you prepared to take a special oath? To promise that you will use your knowledge only for good and not for evil? This is very important, George. Science can be a force for good, but it can also do great harm." George stood up straighter and looked Eric in the eye. "I am," he confirmed.
Then Eric said, "Look at the words on the blackboard. It is the oath of the scientist. Read the oath out loud."
The words of the oath made him very tingly with excitement, right down to his toes. He read the oath out loud, as Eric had instructed. "I swear to use my scientific knowledge for the good of humanity. I promise never to harm any person in my search for enlightenment. I shall be courageous and careful in my quest for greater knowledge about the mysteries that surround us. I shall not use scientific knowledge for my own personal gain or give it to those who seek to destroy the wonderful planet on which we live. If I break this oath, may the beauty and wonder of the universe forever remain hidden from me." Eric clapped. Annie burst an empty crisp packet. Cosmos flashed a rainbow of bright colors across the screen. "Well done, George," said Eric. "Cosmos will now show us how a star is born." "Welcome," said Cosmos, playing a little computerized fanfare. The room was getting darker and darker.
"Come and sit here," George called Annie, who had already settled herself on the big comfortable sofa.
George sat down next to her, and after a few seconds, he saw a tiny beam of very bright white light. It came directly from Cosmos's screen. The beam shot out into the middle of the room where it was wavered for a second before it began to sketch shape in the air. But that looks like a... George began to speak. A window, said Eric proudly. Cosmos has made us a window on the universe. Watch closely. The beam of light disappeared, leaving the window it had drawn in the middle of Eric's sitting room, hanging in midair. It now looked exactly like a real window. It had a big sheet of glass in the pane and a metal frame. Beyond it, there was a view. And that view was not of Eric's house, or of any house, road or town, or anywhere else that George had ever seen before. Instead, through the window, George could see an incredible, vast darkness, peppered with what looked like tiny bright stars. He started to try and count them. George, said Cosmos in his mechanical voice, there are billions and billions of stars in the universe. New stars are created all the time. They are born in giant clouds of dust and gas. I am going to show you how it happens. How long does it take for a star to be born? Asked George. Tens of millions of years, replied Cosmos. I hope you are not in a hurry, said Eric, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside the sofa. Don't worry, George. I've speeded it quite a bit. You'll still get home for dinner. George noticed something about the view through the window onto the outer space. Not all of it was covered with little stars. In the bottom corner of the window, he saw a patch of total darkness, a place where not a single star shone. What's happening there? He pointed. Let's have a look, shall we? Said Eric. He pressed a button on a remote control, and the view through the window seemed to zoom towards the dark patch. As they got closer, George realized that an enormous cloud was hovering in that spot. The window kept moving forward until they were right inside the cloud itself, and George could see it was made of gas and dust, as Cosmos had said. What is it? He asked. And where is it? It's a huge cloud in outer space, much bigger than the ones in the sky, replied Eric, made up of tiny, tiny particles which are all floating around inside it. There are so many of these particles that the cloud is enormous. It's so big that you could put millions and millions of Earths inside it. From this cloud, many stars will be born. Inside the cloud, George could see the particles moving around, some joining together to form a huge lump of matter. These great lumps spun round and round, gathering even more particles all the time. But as the particles joined together, the spinning lumps weren't getting bigger. Instead, they seemed to be getting smaller, as though something was squeezing them. It looked like someone was making gigantic dough balls in outer space. One of these giant balls was quite close to the window now, and George could see it spinning round, getting smaller and smaller all the time. As it shrank, it became hotter and hotter, so hot that George could feel the heat from where he sat on the sofa, and then it started to glow with a dim but frightening light. Why is it glowing? Asked George. The more it shrinks, said Eric, the hotter it gets. The hotter it gets, the brighter it shines. Very soon it's going to get too hot. The ball exploded from the inside, throwing off its outer layers of burning hot gas in all directions. After the explosion, the ball was shining like the sun. Wow, said George. Is that the sun? It could be, Eric replied. That's how stars are born, and the sun is a star. When a huge amount of gas and dust combines and shrinks to become dense and hot, as you have just seen, the particles in the middle of the ball are so pressed together that they start to fuse or join up, releasing an enormous amount of energy. This is called a nuclear fusion reaction. It is so powerful that when it starts, it throws off the outer layer of the ball, and the rest is transformed into a star. That's what you just saw. The star was now shining steadily in the distance. It was a beautiful sight. George gazed at it, amazed by its power. Every now and then he could see huge jets of brightly shining gases sent hundreds of thousands of miles from the surface at extraordinary speeds. And the stars will keep on shining like this forever? He asked. Nothing is forever, George, said Eric.